Welcome everyone to the Innovation Circuit with Theta. I'm Liz Knight. I head up the cybersecurity practice at Theta. We're here to discuss the latest tech trends, news, and reflect on how those things are impacting your business. On today's panel, we have Gary Blumgart, head of digital and data practices. Hey, Gary.
Hello.
We have Jeff Wogan, who's a head of a digital practice. Hey, Jeff. And joining us for the first time, our emerging technologies architect, Jim Taylor. Nice to have you join us, Jim. In the latest global threat report, CrowdStrike shared that there's been a significant increase in vishing attacks. So vishing or voice phishing is a type of social engineering scam that is conducted over a phone where attackers impersonate trusted figures such as, your bank or your help desk, your IT help desk, and try and manipulate you into revealing personal information, downloading malicious software, giving them access to your system. It's particularly effective because it's exploiting human trust by pretending to be someone you trust or someone you know. So my initial question for the panel today is, how do we think AI is contributing to the increase of these kind of attacks?
Well, I would imagine that it's quite a significant contributor to these attacks for a number of reasons. It can set up and execute these attacks at scale. And also with the ability to clone people's voices, you can have far more effective vishing attacks, as people will tend to believe something when they think it's somebody they know. And if the voice cloning is accurate, you're tapping into people's emotions straight away, and that's probably going to drive a lot more success, if you want to call it success, with these vishing attacks. I reckon it's going to be hugely impactful.
The people that are operating these attacks have got to have some kind of knowledge or leverage to actually target you. Would that be the case? It's gonna need some kind of orchestration or social engineering. I guess it's just it's a next evolution of standard social engineering, where maybe just somebody calls you up pretending to be from your bank, but I guess we're sort of adding more plausibility to it.
They're more convincing because, the cloning capabilities are that much better. So it's more sophisticated.
I don't think the level of what they need to know has changed, because the phishing and smishing that we've had in the past is based on whatever information they've managed to glean, and they convert that into an attack. This is just upping it a level to personalize it, if you wish.
Yeah, it doesn't take much personal information about you to convince you that this was intended for me.
Does it get to the point where you have to be deeply suspicious of anyone that you're interacting with, from, say, any kind of organization that you interact with, like a bank or something? Are we going to have to kind of agree, like two-factor authentication, when you initiate a conversation with someone? It's oh, hi Jim, this is so and so from the bank. Are you going to have to say, okay, well, send your verification number so I know you're human?
That is a scenario, but what happens if you get a call or a voicemail from somebody like your daughter or your wife or your cousin? You're going to go and ask them to verify?
I think if it's someone close to you, there might be tells.
Could be, but they tap into emotion. So it's a lot of the time it's a dramatic event where something has to happen quickly, otherwise a catastrophe will occur. And so that emotion gets in the way of reasoned thinking.
Your usual caution goes out of the window because you're suddenly dealing with Dad, I'm stuck on the side of the motorway. Yep. And
that's right.
I need to get some petrol. Can you
So it's a really good question. How can we tell what's real and what's not? I notice the ASB Bank is advertising that if they call you, they'll now send you a notification through their mobile app to say it's actually them. So I think that's one really great way of tackling the problem. How else are we gonna tackle this? Interested to hear your thoughts on what else will work.
Yeah, well, I wanted to also put another example of how this can be exploited. So we've been talking about examples that are quite common, like banks or customer service impersonators to try to get you to do things or send them money or do it, whatever it might be. But the scammers have latched on to the notion that there's very often culture-specific aspects that they can use to leverage to be even more savvy against those who they're targeting. So I've seen an example recently in South Korea where perpetrators are posing as the Seoul Central District Prosecutor's Office. which is quite intimidating, particularly in Korea. And by doing that and arming themselves with even just a bit of personal information about the person they're targeting in advance, they're really succeeding in scaring those victims into making some pretty significant financial transfers, like even millions of dollars in some cases. And by making them believe that if they don't, they'll face dire legal consequences. So it's another one of those ways where even if you feel you know about these things and you're savvy, that if you find those angles that you're not expecting, you might still fall for it.
It's that position of authority that, people are too scared and just do what they're told to do. Absolutely.
I think there was another example as well with one of the major banks where I think it was a Vishing attack, and they even left a number for their victim to call back in case they were worried. And when they did call back, that it was the bank's normal sort of answering service messaging, with all the right music being played and the right sounds, and they could even get through to the extension of the person that had just called it. And so they are very, very sophisticated attacks, and they tap into people's, emotion in terms of losing money and having to act quickly and so on. So I think it's very hard for people to protect against, and specifically people that aren't that tech savvy or don't live in the world of IT.
So how else are we going to tackle this?
Yeah, well, it's kind of looking out to the public for ideas in a lot of cases. I was reading about something that had been happening in the US. So the Federal Trade Commission in the US did a program recently, and they called it the FTC Voice Cloning Challenge, to encourage the development of products or policies or procedures that are specifically aimed at protecting consumers from this AI-enabled voice cloning scam. And it was fascinating because they got lots of entrants, some of them from the private sector, some from the education sector. And it came down to 3 entries split the prize money. The first one was a tool that was called AI Detect. It uses AI algorithms to differentiate between genuine and synthetic voice patterns, detecting those little nuances that are often present in AI-generated content. There's a second one that was a proposal to add carefully crafted micro distortions to voice samples that are imperceptible to the human ear, but would therefore make it very hard to clone. And the last one that was one of the winners was a proposal to use off-the-shelf sensors already integrated into pretty much all the devices we already use today to simultaneously measure speech acoustics and the co-occurring sort of biosignals in the throat and mouth as a person is speaking. So what that's meant to do is authenticate the human origin of the voice in that recording, and at the point of creation, in fact, and then embed that as authentication or as a watermark in that signature in the stream. So
very interesting.
I guess it's pretty difficult though, because everything that you've explained, Jeff, is the sort of digital watermarking of deep fakes, right? So that you can understand and spot a deep fake, when you see one. The problem I imagine is that it's after the fact, and the speed with which generative AI can create and publish content is incredibly quick, and it spreads very quickly once it's on social, so it spreads like wildfire. And I guess the damage is done at that point. As soon as something specifically about a public figure is created, and whether it's a deepfake video or a voice or whatever it may be, it's very hard then to go and try and rectify people's impressions once it's out there. So I understand the use and the value of watermarking. I just don't see how it actually prevents the damage being done in the first place.
I think that's what they're relying on, is the ability to overwhelm to the point where you can't keep up. I think there are people actively working on development of tools that can react and understand that in real time. Or it's kind of like things like at the moment biodetection techniques like gait analysis and voice detection that are being looked at. So I think there's some tools like University of Buffalo has got a deepfakeometer, and there's another one called Reality Defender, which is a real-time deepfake detection software. So I suppose that's might be kind of useful if you're putting that in place to kind of monitor stuff if you're taking incoming calls or video connections. But I really think there's a place for regulation and a kind of moral responsibility for the social media platforms to actually be detecting and marking stuff as a fake or potentially AI generated. And I don't think we're seeing a great deal of transparency around that.
Yeah, one of the things that we've looked at Theta is making sure that, if our finance team gets a request, an urgent request from our CEO or CFO, for example, that they have a protocol in place to verify that it's actually, the CEO or CFO making those requests. And so I think it's, just those little things at this point that will help while the technology catches up. What other things can New Zealand businesses do to prepare?
This is probably a case for just, given that the sort of landscape is changing so fast, is to just keep that awareness training within organizations going around the kinds of phishing and vishing and other kinds of attacks that are ongoing.
Yeah, and let's just hope the technology is just not so good that we can spot these deepfakes, right? On the flip side, this technology is super impressive. There's obviously a lot of advancements going on with cloning and AI image generation. A lot of fun to be had. What are the benefits that we can see for businesses going forward with this technology that isn't all doom and gloom and cyber threats?
Yeah, well, there's several areas where it actually can be used for good. Accessibility is certainly one area of that. For example, if people who have significant speech impairments, you can provide them with a natural sounding synthetic voice. Audiobooks and TV shows that can be created in multiple languages using the same narrator voice, and even restoring or recreating voices for historical figures in documentaries.
Yeah, very cool. I've seen how Teams is bringing on having a presenter speak in one language and it translating out to the global team in the various different languages. I think that's very cool.
Yeah, also good for international product marketing as well. If you make a sales video for your product, you can have more of an international reach.
Jim, in your role, you're looking at emerging technologies. What other interesting things are you seeing at the moment?
I think what's interesting recently is some research work that Anthropic have been doing to kind of try and understand what's going on inside that black box, which is the large language model. So when we have a conversation with an LLM, how is it actually working under the covers? So they've been working on some techniques to dive in and turn on and off different parts of the model and see what kind of circuits are being activated on different queries. And they've seen some interesting behaviors, like, for example, it seems to be apparent that they have concept of circuits, which are networks of neurons that collaborate to perform specific tasks. So what they've seen is that when you talk to an AI about a specific task, it actually activates a kind of conceptual model first, and then when it wants to write out the response to you in a particular language, it's then actually outputting it in Chinese or English or French, depending on what you're talking to it about. So the traditional concept is that it's thinking about one token at a time, or one word at a time to build up its sentence, but it actually appears that there's a much more of a conceptual model going on before it outputs its tasks, which has led them to kind of think about, well, what's happening when we talk to a reasoning model, which is an approach where you talk to the model and it does some thinking and outputs some tokens. So the theory is that actually it's already possibly predetermined what it's going to do, but then it's working back to tell you what it thought. So interesting to see what they're doing there.
Interesting and a little bit scary.
Yeah.
Well, thanks everyone for joining this chat today. I do have one quick fire question for everyone before we head off. Sometimes I've been using AI this week and my experience has been great, and other times not so great. And I was wondering, Harry, starting with you, what's one moment you've used AI this week and you were chuffed with the results and it made you smile in some way?
Well, I don't know if it made me smile, but it'll help me smile. So I'm looking for a supplement for training, just to give you a little bit more energy and up the intensity of gym and boxing sessions and the like. But I needed to find one that was dairy-free, but also healthy. I put in a few of the sort of ingredients that I know are generally in these products. And I sort of asked ChatGPT to recommend a few of these products that were also going to be dairy-free. And it came up with some really cool products that I'd never even heard of that are available in New Zealand. And I had a quick review of them and they look fantastic. So very easy way of finding what you need.
Yeah, very cool. How about you, Jeff?
I've been having maybe a little bit too much fun lately with the new and improved ChatGPT image generation capabilities and getting lost in that a bit. But I had a friend who was looking to start just a little side business on something and asked me if I knew anybody who could help design a logo. And I said, maybe. And so I just put some descriptions into ChatGPT. A couple iterations later, had something quite usable. So that was pretty cool.
Very nice. Yes. Watch out, branding teams. How about you, Jim? I know you're in AI all day. Is there a particular moment?
I needed to create a demo for Theta Assist. And I needed a demo for a incident report. So I got ChatGPT to generate an incident report for me, and it generated one about a junior member of staff who accidentally triggered the office disco ball and fog machine during a client video call, mistaking the remote controller for a projector clicker. And we went through a thorough analysis of all the things that went wrong.
I have to say I loved seeing that incident report assistant in Theta Assist. I was gold star for you from a security perspective. So, yeah, but I didn't ever in my wildest dreams imagine, a disco ball and a smoke machine in the context.
What about you, Liz?
I just have been actually struggling with the image generation. I haven't been using ChatGPT. I have an Adobe license, so I was trying their Firefly tool and gave it a reference picture, and it was a complete and utter flop. So I definitely think it's the input rather than the tooling. Well, thanks everyone for joining us today. It's been great chatting with you, and until next time, have a great weekend.